Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this Glasgow Film Festival Q&A. My name's Paul Gallagher. I'm the Programme Manager from Glasgow Film Theatre, and I'm delighted to have with me today writer-director Lili Horvát, whose film is Preparations to Be Together for an Unknown Period of Time. Lili, where are we speaking to you from today?
I'm in Budapest, Hungary.
Well, greetings from Glasgow.
Greetings from Budapest, and thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have your film in the festival, and it's great to talk to you today. So I wondered if we could start with the title. It's so particular. At what point did you decide that that was going to be the title of this story?
Actually, it's a title that doesn't come from me. It was the title of an underground theater play from 1972, I believe. That was really seen by just a few people back then during communism. It was quite revolutionary piece, and and maybe it had two performances, and that was it. And I was born in 1982, so I didn't see it, but I saw an exhibition when I was a teenager with my parents about this group of artists, and there I saw just a tiny picture from this show and the title, and somehow I felt it was so enigmatic and mysterious and beautiful that I somehow guarded it in my head unconsciously. And when I wrote this story, I already had the first draft of the screenplay, and then it fell in my mind that it was like an outline for this story. So I borrowed this title and we acquired the rights.
That's so cool. I like the idea there of like really literally taking inspiration from a previous work, which is something I was going to ask you about, which we can go straight on to now. Like just in terms of inspirations and influences, you know, the film, well, I don't want to speak to it. There are certain things it reminded me of as I was watching it, but I wondered for you in your creative process, whether there's particular inspiration points and previous works like the play you talked about.
Yeah, absolutely, because we wanted to make a kind of an old-fashioned movie, you know, a really cinematic piece of work. We even shot on celluloid, which is quite rare nowadays. So we were looking for some inspiration, me and my colleagues, rather in older cinema, not from cinema of today or of yesterday. So what you can maybe see on the in our movie are quite obvious references to Hitchcock's Vertigo and the work of Krzysztof Kieślowski, and maybe in Martha's Apartment you can discover some references to The Last Tango in Paris. Yeah, and even one, I have to ask you if you discovered what we are referring to in the walking scene when they are walking on the opposite side of the street.
Oh no! Now I'm gonna appear completely ignorant because no, I don't know.
No.
But...
No, I just want to tell you, it's there is one beautiful scene in Paris, Texas, by Wim Wenders, where the father and son are. So it's a different scene. It's a father and son relationship, not a romantic scene at all. But and the way it is constructed, it is very similar to our film. And I got a lot of compliments actually on this scene, and I always feel a bit ashamed, you know, because it is not an original idea. Just it's rather homage to Wenders' film.
But I mean, all the best ideas, they're built on previous ones anyway, aren't they? So
that's right.
But I really feel like you totally achieved, you know, those film references you're talking about, what you created here, the atmosphere, that sense of kind of mystery and enigma, especially that you get in like Hitchcock and Kieślowski. You can feel that really palpably in this film. I wondered if you could just talk a bit more about kind of achieving that? You talked about filming on celluloid, which is one thing. What did you sort of talk to the actors about in terms of performances and really just getting that tone, which seems so key to the film's success?
There was, of course, other visual references as well. We were looking for it. We found great inspiration in the photographs of Saul Leiter, who is an American photographer who took like street photos in the 50s, 60s, and we kind of built our visual world onto his grainy and mysterious photos, and how he looks at people captured almost accidentally on the streets. So that's how we try to observe Drexler with the eyes of Marta, the woman. Mm. So that was a key element in the visualization of the screenplay. And as for the acting, it's clear that the female protagonist is the whole film is centered on her, and I really wanted to build with her, Natasha Stork, a very multi-layered personality who has who at first like seems like a crazy woman racing after some guy, and then there is this turn that, okay, she's a brilliant brain surgeon, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit more complicated, or gets more complicated than it seems at first sight. And Natasha and Victor Bodo, who plays Drexler, they were really brilliant to collaborate with on. Because I wanted some to achieve something like I wanted to avoid like illustrating the whole thing with the actors, but as maybe most directors have this goal to see actors like being the character and not showing who the character is.
Yeah, there's a sense, particularly in the first half of the film, that Marta's brain might be tricking her. There's this idea of like, can you trust what your brain is telling you? And that idea is very central, I think, to the story. And I wondered, was that your starting point for this story? That questions and ideas of like identity in the mind?
Yes, and rebuilding your own identity in a way, for sure. But her being a brain surgeon was kind of an intuitive decision of me at the beginning. It was obvious that I should make her a smart woman, because then it goes at a different stake. It's not just some random crazy woman, teenager, like floating in her dream world, but an exceptional, intelligent person. And then I decided her to be a doctor, and then I kind of played with this idea that we say if someone's not very intelligent, then we say that, well, she's not a brain surgeon, and then in our film she actually is one. And then as I started to develop this idea and develop the scenes for the screenplay and digged into brain surgery, which I knew nothing about back then, then I started to discover the immense dramaturgical possibilities that this profession carries for this film, which is very much about consciousness. And that the brain is such a mysterious organ itself, that thoughts and feelings are physical processes is a fact, actually, but it is almost impossible to understand even for neurosurgeons. So it has an almost poetic part, although it's all flesh and blood, but there is something really hard to understand about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it really, that kind of enigma really is at the heart of the film. Something that you've kind of touched on that I really liked. I like the fact that on a plot level, I hope you take this the right way. On a plot level, this could be a romantic comedy, but you approach sort of quite familiar elements like the misunderstanding, the real truth behind what's going on, and the idea of the kind of conventional separation and then ultimate reunion. You approach these things from really unusual angles, and I wondered, is this an intentional sort of subversion of the rom-com? Is that kind of what you're going for?
That's not what I have thought of when I was writing the film, but I can see what you mean. Yes, and maybe the ending of the film was absolutely meant to be, although it's kind of gloomy and can be interpreted as depressing also, but it is meant to be humorous as well.
Yeah, no, I thought so. Like the final shot is wonderful, and I think we're mostly talking to people. We are talking to people who've seen the film here. So, and if you're watching this and you haven't seen the film, go and watch it and then come back. But yeah, I think that final shot, it really does capture that sort of moment that she's in, but it's humorous. I think it is humorous.
Something that even her appearance, we wanted to change her a bit, for the last scenes. Like there's a jump in time as well, and she's still beautiful and everything, but she's more like a girl next door. She is lost from her femme fatale likeness.
Yeah. You talked as well about like her profession, and it struck me that the picture of the Budapest medical profession is not the most flattering. I mean, especially at the start where the guy says to her, "You want to work in this hospital," and you've got that shot of like, who would want to work here, basically. And I just wondered, in terms of the reality, is this drawn from the reality in Budapest? Were you kind of making comments here on that?
It is. It's hard and complicated to talk about this because it's not that simple. It's not. We have really run down hospitals and really hard circumstances for the doctors and nurses working in there, but we have brilliant doctors, of course. So me as luckily I have nothing to do in hospitals myself, but me as a relative of a patient, I experienced a lot worse than it is featured in the film, and at the same time I encountered fantastic doctors, who work under these rather hard circumstances and in a really badly constructed system. But it was tempting to show even more from this, because it has a funny aspect as well. You can show you can make the audience laugh at these scenes, especially Hungarian audience that recognize these scenes and how impossible they are. But this story has its focus elsewhere. It was more like I wanted to raise the stakes of the film by making Marta to make some sacrifice for this for this man, and I was considering making a sacrifice in private life, but I then went rather for making a professional one. And it is one other thing that is clearly so in Hungary, that is the top fields in medicine are dominated by male doctors, and neurosurgery is definitely such a field. By the way, I get immense support and help from some Hungarian neurosurgeons when developing and shooting this film, and even while editing. And but these were all male doctors. I didn't find someone like Martha.
Yeah. So your character, she doesn't exist yet in the real world, it seems.
Not really.
Actually. Yeah, that's a frustrating situation. And thinking about that, like thinking about Marta and the fact that we're seeing the story from her perspective, and this sort of chimes in with the idea of her as a neurosurgeon as well. It seems that you're kind of bringing us into a story that we would usually see from the man's perspective, like his story would be the one that we would see. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that, like, I guess, like developing that, if that's something that just came about as you wrote the story, if you intentionally thought, I want to show a woman who you usually see her kind of irrational behavior from the man's perspective, and she's just like a ditzy character or something.
It's hard to tell, because I had this idea of being in the woman's head from the beginning on. It was the starting idea for this film was that scene where the man doesn't recognize her, or says he doesn't he doesn't recognize her, and of course I didn't see it in such details back then, but it was clearly a woman's point of view that I saw this scene from. And I had an idea at the beginning of the development that maybe I should show two parallel stories, from points of view. But then I decided to go only with the woman, and this gives me the possibility to show how differently we can interpret things. If we show the man's version only at the end of the story, then we can feel it with the woman, how tricky love and projecting in love can be.
Yes, it really works. It really works. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our time, Lili, but I wanted to ask, so the film, as you know, is part of the Audience Award at Glasgow Film Festival this year. And it sort of made me wonder, during this year of COVID, of sort of enforced not being able to go to festivals, what your experience has been like with this film in terms of connecting with audiences. You've obviously had a great journey through festivals with the film, but it will have been very different to the one that you anticipated having when you were making the film. What's it like sort of trying to feel an audience response in this moment?
It's a difficult question, because this film has become a great success, something that is beyond my expectations. It is now the Oscar entry, and
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much, and it went to really the best festivals, and we won some beautiful awards with it, and so it's it has a really high audience number in Hungary, which is also more than I have expected before. So that's one part of the story. that is beyond my expectations. But meeting with the audience, this is something that I truly miss, because I cannot say that I met anyone or almost anyone. I'm meeting festival people like you, and it is great, but because you are the big film connoisseurs, and it's it's very great to talk with you and your colleagues, but it is something really different that what you can feel in a projecting room, and that is something I miss, and actually that in Hungary the cinemas were still open for 2 months when we released the film here in September and October, and that was such a blessing, that my main human connections are now that of my daughter's schoolmates and their parents, because schools are still open. I don't meet my own friends and etc., but I meet the parents, and that there I get so great reactions from them. I was thinking about that it has such a big importance for me now, because that is something personal that somebody has it to my face, and that's strange. But I'm not the only one having this problem.
No, I mean, I completely feel it too. It's the same for us here in Glasgow. But what I was going to say was, the Glasgow Film Festival audience and the GFT audience are so warm and receptive towards cinema. I know that they are going to love your film. And also, when the opportunity arises, please come join us in Glasgow. We'd love to
invite me once I can go.
Yes,
sure.
we certainly will. We certainly will. But Lili, thanks so much for your time today, and also all the best with the journey of the film as it continues. I know that, how exciting would it be to get to the Oscars? But one thing at a time. But congratulations on how far you've come so far, and the great success of the film so far. So thanks for your time today, Lili.
And thank you so much.